Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. And today I'll be sharing more true ghost stories from the web. Excuse me. As always, to find all the episodes of the show and links to social media, ways to donate, and other ways to contact me, you can visit the podcast page, which is Salcedo Paranormal at podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions for shows, or if you have stories of experiences, whether they're your own or others, that you'd like to share. I can either read those on the show, if you send them to me in a text format, or if you want to talk about them with me on the show, then you are welcome to do that as well. Just let me know either way. I believe that covers all of that. So let's see here. Tomorrow I'll be doing a book review, probably more of the H.P. Lovecraft complete fiction. So that should be fun. I've already got one story set up for that, and I'll probably try to read at least one more tomorrow as well. Listen to one more tomorrow. And then Friday we continue our series on mountains. It'll be the Eastern U.S. on Friday this time. So, I also, as I said yesterday, I did an interview for Where Did the Road Go? Great podcast. I recommend it to everyone. And the episode that I was on is not out yet. I think it takes like a week or so. But I'll be sharing links to it once it is out, and hope to be on there again at some point. And we talked about that a little bit. The host, Soraya, and I talked a little bit about that possibility. So we'll see what happens. But I had a great time, and he was had some great thoughts, and it was very good conversation there. So enjoyed it a lot. But anyway, let's get on to these stories here. So let's see here. Okay. I'll start with this first one. This one says, my grandmother passed away in 1991, so all I have are stories of her when she was alive. I didn't think there would be more stories of her, even after her passing. As she was English, she was committed to her tea times, always having the kettle on around 4 p.m. and offering a slice of her delicious homemade lemon cake. After she passed, my dad, her son, decided to keep the tea kettle, as my mom was an avid tea drinker as well, and he had trouble parting ways with it. For a time, all was quiet as my parents mourned her death, and life started to feel like the new normal. It started around 4 p.m., months after the funeral. The kettle suddenly whistling, although no one was using the stove, and it contained no water. My mom used it sparingly before this, and only drank tea early in the morning. It was dismissed as some inexplicable misfire, and my dad made light of it. My mom, however, was weary. Then it began whistling in the middle of the night. It was so loud one time that it woke my mom out of her sleep upstairs, and she came down to see that the stove was not on, and there was no water in the kettle, and everyone was asleep. She is a very no-nonsense person, with a healthy fear of anything paranormal. So she did the most sensible thing. She threw it in the trash. This caused an argument between my parents because my dad didn't want to get rid of one of his mother's prized possessions. They agreed that the random whistling had reached a point where it could no longer be ignored or no longer be laughed about or ignored. The whistling happened day and night up to that point. They finally agreed to get rid of it, but there was more to come. The tea kettle was never seen again, but my grandmother found other ways to let her presence be known. There would be knocks on the window that looks into the dining room from the backyard, as if one of the kids was trying to get my parents' attention from the backyard area. Every time it was three knocks coming from outside, and they would peer out the window to see no one out there. Also, the knocks sounded heavier, like an adult with a purpose was knocking in a way that was meant to get someone's attention. This occurred 2 times that I remember. I was finally old enough to realize what was happening at this time. And it only happened on special occasions where all four of my grandma's children were together under our roof. It became the sweet acknowledgement, and our family agreed it was grandma's way of saying she was happy to see her children all together again. And so that's an amazing story there. I can understand why the kettle whistling would be a problem after a while there. That's a noise that's pretty hard to ignore. I guess maybe I say that because my ears are so sensitive that that noise always bothers me. um, but then the knocking, which is really interesting that there was knocking after, but it was only when all of the grandmother's um, children, grown up children, I'm guessing at this point, were all together in the same house. That's I think that's pretty neat in a way. It does sound almost like she's just saying, "Hi, I'm here. Good to see you all here." At the same time. Um, so because that sometimes when you have just from my experience with families, it can be hard to get everyone together at the same time sometimes, and so maybe that's part of why she decided she had to knock and say hello. But yeah, really interesting little story there. So I'll go on to the next one. A lot of these are pretty short today. This won't be a super long episode, but they're still interesting, and I was glad I found them. Um, took a little while today, but got them all anyway. So this one says, what I remember is that when I was about 2 or 3 years old, I was home alone at night for the first time. Luckily, my grandparents lived downstairs. They lived in a pretty old 4-story house in an old European city. So I guess they weren't really alone. Maybe they just felt like their grandparents were there. I came upstairs not knowing my parents went to work. And I flicked on the lights and started looking around. And I saw her, a woman floating in the air, pointing at me and signing me to go back downstairs or back to my room. I went back and started crying in the baby monitor so my grandparents could hear me. They came up looking for me and found me in the corner of my room crying. They took me downstairs. I have never seen her again. I do feel like she sometimes replaces things in my house. A few years ago, my grandfather uh, told me that in the 50s, a cleaning lady was crushed by our elevator. It still scares me today. And that's obviously a terrible way to go. But I wonder if it was that same woman and kind of maybe unintentionally frightening this little kid, the writer when they were a little kid, but trying to also maybe even trying to help in some way, but just again without meaning to, frightening the child. So I thought that was an interesting one. There didn't really the writer didn't really describe the woman, but I guess if it's that far back, then maybe you might not remember much about her. But but yeah, I thought that was a neat story. It's like someone was there that was just trying to help out. Um, I think that happens a lot. I think I wouldn't be surprised if that happens a lot in a lot of stories, a lot of cases where there's someone that for whatever reason is still in a location, and they try to help out through whatever means, and they end up frightening everyone there, and it's not even necessarily their intention, but just that people don't know, so it's scary to them. But so yeah, that was it's a good thing that the grandparents were there. I'm guessing, I'm hoping that it was planned, that it was not just a random parents let the kid, you know, um, alone. So, but, uh, but yeah, that sounds like I stuck with the writer anyway. So, I know even though I forget some of the little details of things now, my first experiences, I won't ever forget them completely. At least I highly doubt it. So, okay. So this next one says, this happened about 16 years ago. We used to live in an apartment on the second floor. My house used to overlook a huge swamp that was covered with thorny bushes. One night, when my mother and I were sleeping, we heard someone shout out my nickname. At first, I thought it was just my dream, but this happened a few more times, and that is when I opened my eyes and saw my mom sitting up, looking visibly shocked. She asked me if I heard my name being called out, and when I said yes, she went to the window to look outside. The swamp was a place where no one could walk or enter easily, even for fun. I was there when this swamp was cleared for a housing project, and they struggled even with modern equipment. Back to the story. So this happens a few more times, and my mom kept running to the window to hopefully catch someone in the act. But there was no one, and the voice never called out my name for the entire period of time we were looking out. The moment we turned our heads away from the window, it began. This happened for a week before mysteriously stopping, and it never happened again. This name was very unique, and only my family members used to call me that name. So none of my friends knew it. And it happened between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. every day for that 1 week. I am 30 now, and this still confuses me as to what this could have been. So, um, that's a that's an interesting one. It does make you wonder if maybe when they were looking outside, if there was something there that just wasn't even visible, so it didn't matter if they looked outside or not. Um, it's I don't know. I mean, how would unless it was somehow telepathic or in the house, which is even kind of stranger and possibly more frightening. How would it, or the person, or whatever, the spirit or the entity know this person's nickname? So, um, so I don't know, but at least it stopped after a while there. The timing in the morning is interesting too. That time where so many stories of paranormal experiences seem to happen. That 2 to 4 a.m. window um, seems to be something there to that. And I've heard all different kinds of theories, but of course, who knows for sure. But there's definitely something to that, and not always bad stuff either. Just like, that just tends to be. It can be an active time in the morning for these things. So, but thank you all for being here, for listening. I've got a few more left here to read. But thank you all for listening, whether you're listening live to the stream or you're listening to the podcast or YouTube feed. I appreciate all of your support. So let's see here. This next one is really short, but it brings up some interesting questions. So I'll just read it. This one says, I worked in nursing homes for 13 years, and in every one of them, we would see a man in black and or a lady in white. If we saw either one, sorry, we knew to count our patients because someone had passed away. At one facility I worked at, we had a lady where if she came up and started singing Amazing Grace, someone in that facility had passed away. Hospitals and nursing homes are by far the most haunted. That's where that one ends. I hadn't heard of the association with almost like a shadow figure or a woman in white apparition appearing, and then there being someone that had passed around that same time. I wonder if just how many of these places this writer worked at where this happened. And if it was something only they saw, because I've never really heard of this specific of a claim associated with these stories from medical professionals. I've heard of strange things in hospitals and nursing homes and all that, definitely. But this is that I thought that was really specific, and so I thought I'd just share that because that's odd, and so yeah, I don't know. Does that mean is that really the case? Are they drawn to those places? That makes you wonder who or what are they? Are they regular human spirits? Are they not? So all kinds of questions. Of course, no easy answers. But yeah. So I had to share that one. So let's go on to the next one here. Let me see here. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but I've decided it's kind of just better to find a certain number of stories and just go with those. And and not worry about so much about trying to get the timing just right, because you never know. Um, so anyway, this next one says, this was a few months ago. I walked into my garage where we have our drinks in our refrigerator, and the door to the refrigerator was wide open. Note that it's one of those doors that pretty much closes on its own. It would take some effort to actually make stay open. The door was open, so I asked my dad if he was out there, and he said he closed it. So I went and checked the camera, and the video cuts out at that exact moment. It shows him entering the garage, and then just cuts to the door being open. The second thing happened just a few days ago. We have a pool, and it has a lanai around it. I don't even know what that, I guess like a cover, kind of maybe that kind of thing. Out in the pool area, we have some beach type stuff hanging up. One of them hangs on a nail on a part of the wall that the wind doesn't really reach. I went outside and saw it lying a few feet away from where it hangs up. I went to look at the outside camera, and it had cut out at that exact moment again. One second hanging up, then the next, it was on the ground. And that's where that one ends. And that is really interesting if that's someone or something causing these events to happen, but then also manipulating, I guess it'd be home surveillance camera equipment. That's really interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that outside of fiction before. But if they can, I'm guessing, well, I guess I don't know if it was a digital, but it seems like it would be. But if it was a digital, maybe it was manipulated somehow through energy. Somehow the whatever was doing this, it sounds like whatever this is really wanted to get attention but instead of hiding, or instead of showing what it did, it got it by hiding what it did or how it did it. So that's an odd little one there. It makes you wonder what else over time, if there was more events, and if the writer kept on checking the cameras, if they'd ever see anything or not, or if they would just keep on happening that same way. Or I almost wonder too if there was some kind of a, I don't know, time glitch or something. But yeah, I don't know about that one. So, but let's see here. So yeah, thank y'all for being here. I see y'all in chat, and I see you there, Ken. Sorry, I only have one more story left for you, but you can always check out the podcast tomorrow. That's for sure. So, but so we'll get to this last story here. I found this one. I really liked it a lot. Okay. This one says, the Mexican people celebrate the Day of the Dead in a joyful way. So let us reject the horror movie idea of all apparitions being evil monsters, and instead think about it in a way that is more pragmatic. Have you seen a real apparition, ghost, or spirit? Can I tell you, I was an atheist without interest in any religion for years before this happened. At the time, I was living in an old house, which was over 100 years old. One afternoon, I was in the upstairs bedroom that faced the front of the house. I was trying to play a piece of music on a keyboard. I wasn't doing too good. As I stood there, I had a feeling that someone was also in the room. I turned my head to look, and inside the bedroom, by the open door, stood a woman of a medium build, around 5 foot 8 inches in height. This lady wore a long black dress from her shoulders down to her feet. This dress looked well padded at the rear, which was popular in the Victorian years. Her face looked like a normal person, and she had a dark hat on her head. I spoke to her, saying the first words that popped into my head. Thank you for letting us rent your home or your house. There was a pause of silence. The lady was looking at me. The lady spoke to me. She said, "It won't be for long." I then said, "Thank you anyway." For a second, I looked at the keyboard and then looked at the lady, but no one was there. I walked quickly to the open door and looked down the stairs. No one was there. At once, I looked in every upstairs room, then I ran downstairs and looked in those rooms. No one was there. I always keep the front and back doors locked. Both doors were still locked. I was the only person inside that house. A few months later, my landlord asked me to leave the house as it was being sold. And that's where that one ends. It's pretty amazing that this person was the writer was basically trying to play music. Maybe they weren't even doing as bad as they thought, and the maybe that one of the former owners was still there, and they met for a brief time. They met the writer of that story. It's a really interesting one. Nothing too frightening, like they said. But and at first I was worried when I first read that story earlier today. I was thinking, oh no, maybe they kind of were trying to play a trick, and that they said it wasn't going to be a kind of a scary story, and then they pulled the fast one basically. Just decided to change it up anyway. But no, and in the end, this apparition, what they said was not wrong. And it wasn't a terrible horror movie ending. It's just the landlord was selling the house. So yeah, very interesting story there at the end. But yeah, thank you all for being here. And tomorrow, like I said, we'll be doing a book review episode. So continuing on with more of the H.P. Lovecraft. And I believe that's about it. So thank you all again. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow night on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.